Masters of Law. Finished law school, passed the bar, then did my Masters of Law. But the thing that really crystallized for me being a mom and able to be successful is you have to have the support, right?
I remember God saying to me, listen, if you didn't die at the point of impact, you're going to be okay. You know the point of impact. When you get the knock on the door, you know the point of impact. When you pick up the phone and you get that news, if you didn't die on the point of impact, you're going to be all right. That's a good place to clap your hands right there.
Inside of you. There's something more powerful inside of you. Honey, y'all better take a breath. I'm telling you.
It wasn't mine.
You gonna get some deliverance here today. Hey there, this is Nicole Mason on the Nicole Mason Show. I'm so excited to be here with you all, and I am so excited about my guest. Now listen, for those of you who are regulars on the Nicole Mason Show on Sunday afternoons, y'all know we tried to do this show last month, and we just couldn't do it. Listen, whenever you're doing something positive and something powerful for God, the enemy always tries to rear his head, but guess what? We scoped our show last month. And it was still powerful. So we are doing a redo today. And so I want to formally introduce my guest, and then it's gonna take off from there. All right. So Amina B. McWhirter is a proud native of Washington, D.C., and a mother of 2 adult children. She is a speaker, author, goal strategist, and founder of Love by the Handles, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that serves at-risk youth, victims of domestic violence, and homeless individuals in the D.C. metro area. The organization provides self-empowerment programs, clothes, food, and other personal items to help make the transition easier and less traumatic. An accomplished author, her book, Shh, No More, Be Free and Live Life, helps women to find their way out of abusive situations and reclaim their life. Amina is a survivor and conqueror. She beat cancer, overcame the pitfalls of being raised without a father, and found her voice after suffering abuse. Amina wants to break the silence on issues that women are experiencing, especially issues of abuse, relationship problems, and other things that may be causing unhappiness. Drawing on her own experiences, Amina teaches women how to protect their happiness and empowers them with tools and action steps to take. Tools and action steps to take a live. To live a fulfilled life. I can't get my words right. All right. Amina teaches women how to protect their happiness and empowers them with tools and action steps to take to live a fulfilled life. We already cracking up in the studio. She gives needed advice to women who are ready to play bigger and fulfill their goals and dreams. Whoop, whoop. So I want to present to some and introduce to others my girl, Amina B. McWhirter. See, you have to put your initial in there, okay? B. McWhirter. Hey, sister.
Hey. How are you?
So listen, wait a minute. We have to tell the folks we've been in here. First of all, we're laughing at each other because we trying to make sure we don't fall off of these new stools that's in the studio. So we're having a good time already, trying to navigate ourselves and making sure we're looking all right. Okay. So listen, I'm so excited that your schedule would allow you to come back in with us, because you know the devil was mad at us the last time we tried to do this show.
Absolutely.
Because you know the subject matter and all of that goes along with it, and just the work that you're doing. So let's get started. So let me move all of my little stuff, because the people on Periscope, we want them to see us, not just on. Look, I hope they don't see us falling over.
We got this. Come on, sis. We in this together.
Wait a minute. We in this together. We holding each other up.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's turn them around so they can see us. Okay. Hey, y'all. So we are in the studio. Hey. Yes. All right. So listen. I want to start out by talking about your book. I know my engineer. He keeps telling me to look in the camera. Okay. I'm trying to get my thing together on Periscope. All right, y'all. Okay, y'all know me. It is what it is. Okay, what you see with me is what you get. I gotta move my stool up a little bit so that I'm good. Okay, so I'm so excited about the work that you're doing and this book. Shh, no more. I love that title.
Thank you.
So let's start talking about how you came to be. This book is so powerful. You have to make sure that you get it. I was so enthralled by it, and I shared this with you, not just about talking about the abuse, because we can talk about that, but you give real practical steps and strategies and resources for people who are in abusive relationships, in abusive situations, to utilize for them to transition. And I really commend you for that.
Thank you.
So it's not just a book about all the bad stuff.
No.
You chronicle even your transition, and that's powerful to me.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit about how this all started in your life, and you talk a lot about it in the book, but just how this really transitioning, because once you start really doing the work that you have done, you see how the dots connect in your life.
Absolutely.
And why this happened.
Absolutely.
Why you connected with this person.
Right.
Why you connected with that person.
Right.
It's very powerful.
Right.
So talk about how it all began for you.
Well, everything you said is true. That's what really happened, how everything connected. I am first just so humbled and glad and grateful to be back on your show.
Yeah.
And even talking about this subject as well as my book, because a lot of people sometimes stay away from it. And especially certain things that I talk about, because I try to talk about all aspects of abuse that we don't talk about. Of course, we talk a lot about the domestic violence piece, but the spiritual, the mental, the verbal, the emotional, the sexual, so many different forms of abuse that we really want to stay away from. And so I had to really...
No, but then the one that you really tackle is the church abuse.
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And I just want to applaud you for being courageous enough even to broach the subject, because many people do not. They don't talk about abuse that happens in church.
Right.
So the thing that I love about you, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. Thing that I love about you is the fact that you have taken this subject matter, but you have made it so that people will talk to you about it. Just your spirit and your love and your compassion, I think is to be commended, because sometimes when people go through things, you and I both know, and I'm sure people watch and they can attest to it, that it makes people hard.
Yes.
It makes them hard.
Yes.
And, listening to some people's story, you would say, okay, you have a right, but that's not what God wants us to do.
Right. That's true.
So let's start talking about the book and how this started for you.
Okay. Well, going back, really, it started with me being open to what happened to me at a very young age. And even with this book, Shush No More, it really...
no, you have to say it the
way.
way.
I'm sorry. Shh. No more.
Okay.
Be free and live life.
Okay. Shh. No more.
No more.
Okay. And you have to say that with some authority.
Yes. So the realness behind it is actually in my late years of life, being honest with myself of things that I really went through and how it affected me from a negative standpoint, but realizing that that was a part of my journey, my purpose, and my calling, and that it really wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It was for me to be able to just be an instrument to start to break a cycle that we, in our culture, in society, in the nation, have not wanted to, really talk about.
Right.
And really in dealing with abuse. And it's so funny because I know that being sexually abused at a young age, 6, matter of fact, and not really even telling my mother until I was 25. And I remember hearing even others, celebrities and non, but even celebrities, that when they would come out in their older age, they were kind of like ridiculed.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you just want the, to tell the story in the limelight. No, that's the journey. And that's how long it took for them to even deal with what happened and want to talk about it and really realize that it wasn't about them.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to me. And in that process, I also, in relationships and friendships and marriage and this and that, I realized that that was really why I went through it, because it went to different forms of abuse, because I didn't deal with the reality of the sexual abuse and the lie, that I was keeping. And then it went into mental, it went into verbal. And the spiritual piece was really huge because it caused, like you said, me to get hard to a certain degree, but then circle of friends, God put people in my life, put this lovely sister in my life, and others, where that journey of healness and wholeness started to come. And even with me being a divorced woman, that too was difficult, a part of the church hurt, or the church not wanting to realize the truth. Well, not the church, but some of the people in the church not wanting to realize the truth of different things that happen in that transition of wholeness and healing.
Okay, so you said a mouthful right there. So let's back up. So the first thing is, when you start talking about abuse at age 6, one of the things that has crippled us as a community, that old adage of what goes on in this house stays in this house. And let me tell you, that will cause a whole lot of things to go on in your house that should not, right? And so when we start to even talk about getting help from the outside with things that are going on inside in our community, and one of the things that I have been a huge proponent of over the years is psychological counseling, because I believe that psychology and counseling plus Jesus, you can't go wrong.
Absolutely.
There are just some things that have happened in our lives that we can't get on a Sunday morning service. It takes more work. It takes a deeper dive, if you will. Right. Now, I'm a huge proponent of the word. I'm a huge proponent of prayer. People that know me know that that's one of my favorite pastimes is prayer. Okay, I love to pray. But I also know that God has created other people and other help services to help us to be whole. So you said a lot there. So even from the abuse at age 6, and then having to carry that burden throughout the course of your young life. And, just what happens to you. And, what happens, I know, to a lot of people is that there comes a time that you can no longer carry it anymore.
Yes.
And that's what happens to most people. So talk about, when all of that began to unravel for you.
It really started to unravel in my late 30s. I would say mid to late 30s, and I'm in my mid 40s now. So this healing, this progress, this journey, truth be told, it's still new. And
that's good.
And I'm still going through it. And the thing about that, as far as what you just asked me, was that's when I really had to say, wait a minute. Sickness that I had, anxiety, being in a toxic environment and friends and relationship because of others and caring what others thought and what others wanted from me, that was my breaking point. Because when in the book it talks about when I had an anxiety attack that almost took me out of here.
But wait a minute, you have to tell them, where did you have this anxiety attack?
In church.
Oh, that's powerful. Okay. In the place that's supposed to empower you, in the place that's supposed to give you peace, in the place that's supposed to bring you joy, you have an anxiety attack. That to me was deep. When I read that, I was like, wow, how deep is that? Right. The place that we are supposed to go to get life, to help us live life, in that very place, it was almost taken from you.
Absolutely. And, with you making that statement, I look back now, especially with the healing piece, and I really see even the goodness of God through that, and having some really sincere, genuine, loving, spiritual people, such as my sister here and others that have come into my life and my circle in these last 7 years, has been unbelievable. Because in that, I could have, as you stated before, been hard. Don't get me wrong. There was moments. But thank God I came out of it. So to be hard and to really look at people with a trust and openness that I wasn't doing before, because to me, so many people let me down. And so many people hurt me, and so many people wanted me to shush. And that's why I was shush. No more.
No more.
And so that, what you said is really it, because I lived a lie in church. And I just want to make this statement really quick. I lived a lie in church, and so many others do, because they don't really feel that it's a safe place. So they don't really feel that it is sisters like Sister Nicole and others that really are genuine and want to help and see transition, and not ashamed for you to be open to tell your story and your journey to help with the healness. And so that's what really had the anxiety, unbeknownst to me, to overtake me. Having a heart monitor, for years before, I had to wear for 30 days that the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. So many things. It's because I wasn't able to be free and let people know I was dying.
And that's critically important. And I think I want to be clear here that these things that happen to people, dis-ease is really a dis-ease in your spirit. And, my home pastor, he says it this way, that everything that we feel and experience in the spirit, there's a counterpart to it in the flesh, and vice versa. And so what happens is when your spirit is crying out, and then it begins to show itself in your flesh. So you will have a heart monitor. You will find yourself having heart palpitations, not understanding what's going on. And not everything leads to that, right? So I want to be clear. But somebody said, well, maybe that's what it is. No, you need to go to the hospital, right? But what I am clear on is that whatever is going on within our souls and our spirits, at some point, it's going to break out.
Absolutely.
And I think you and I talked the last time we were together that, sometimes you can look at people's skin because it's coming out in different ways, right? You look at people's skin. Sometimes it's coming out in their skin. Sometimes it's coming out in the way people act, of course, their attitudes and their behaviors. But it's going to affect your body.
Somehow.
It's going to affect your body. And this is why you have to be healed and whole, mind, body, and spirit and soul. And that's why it's hard work. Because you can't just do one part of it and leave the other parts. It just doesn't work that way. So you have to work on your spirit. You have to work on your physical. You have to work on your emotional. All of those things. And so I imagine that when, you had this anxiety at church, that when you really came to, like, really, this is really something.
Absolutely. And that was the day when everything stopped. And, looking back, I remember a lot of people would tell me, oh, you're courageous, you're strong. And I didn't think that, because I was still, that emotional, mental abuse is so real, because it deals with your self-worth and your self-esteem. So I dealt with that for so many years that even when people, it's like the saying of the imposter syndrome. It's like it's so many people that can tell you you're great, can tell you you're this, but you don't believe it because that self-worth is so, low. But so many people didn't see it because I camouflaged it. I lived this life. I went into character.
Let me tell you. Women can do that so well. With all this makeup, with all of this hair that you can buy. This is our hair. This is our hair. But all this hair you can buy, these clothes that you can put on. But what happens is at a certain point in time, you know, everybody comes to a point where it's like, you know, I'm not going to live this life anymore. And one of the things that I want women to understand who are watching us, whether on Periscope, whether on live, or who will listen to the playback, you have to at some point be confident enough and courageous enough to say enough is enough.
That's right.
Because God did not put any of us here to be anybody's doormat. He did not put us here to be walking in fear where everybody else's wishes are granted but ours.
Right.
That's not the kind of God we serve.
No, it's not.
Right?
No, it's not.
And so when I hear you and I see you, I just know that God is powerful. And when he has his hand on you, you can't even do anything about it. You can't even do anything about it.
No.
And so to even get to the point where you have a breaking point, and I think that's what people are scared of.
Oh, I was terrified.
Right. Nobody wants to have a breakdown. But listen, in order for you to really have a breakthrough, sometimes, most of the time, all the time, you have to break down. All right? I'm serious.
Absolutely.
You have to have a breakdown to break through.
Yes.
And that is scary because it's, you know, it's the unknown. You don't know.
Tweet or the Instagram, Facebook, that quote.
Right. That's right. You have to
That's
really
right.
give yourself the time and space to fail and succeed, because you have to understand that God is not going to let us go down but so far. Because when you go down and come up, baby, that gives license for other people to go down and come up too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is why I love this book. I want you all to make sure you get it. Shh. No more. Okay. Be free and live life. How'd you come up with that title?
Really, the mere fact of what we're talking about now, different things of how for so many years I was so quiet for so many years. And it's so weird because people who really know me were like,
you're not quiet.
But then they understand.
Yeah.
Or they understood with what I was experiencing and how it was kind of like I wasn't who I really was, or I was muzzled and, you know, couldn't be free. And so from that was one aspect. The other aspect was once I really started to just share, and I had a small group of friends at that time that I trusted, when I was like, you know what, I think I want to write a book. It was the small group, a group of friends that we were talking about the book and me going over some of the chapters. But then it was also once I got on social media and my different things that I was going through at the time was somewhat public to certain people that knew me.
Yeah.
And that started people private messaging me.
Wow.
And talking to me about things that they have experienced in church, things that they experienced in their own personal relationship. And that is really what was like, wait a minute, this book is a part of my therapy.
Yes.
Because based upon what you said, especially in the African American culture, a lot of times we are reluctant in going into counseling and things. So I had clinical counselor.
Yes.
I had a spiritual counselor, and I just went to my own personal rehab,
Yes.
which was me just working on me.
Yes.
And this was a part of that.
Yes.
But the biggest thing was just so many other women that were going through so many similar situations that felt that, oh my God, you're talking about it? So, hey, what about, can I, that? But it was private. And that was something, Elder Nicole, that really got me, was like, why is this so private? So we're gonna title this book "Shush No More." And even if you're not at that place where you are publicly ready to talk about it, just talking to someone, and even if it is me, instant messaging me or emailing me, or just knowing that, hey, somebody can identify, then that's what my purpose is for.
Yes, that's powerful. A couple of things from that. The first thing is about, you know, living a life or living in a way that is not who you are. And that's one of the things that's critically important for all women, is to get to the place where you are authentically who you have been created to be. Now, you know, for me, that's a huge thing, because I think it's a slap in God's face when you are living somebody else.
Wow.
When you are living to please man and not please God, because of all of these different things that have happened, yes. But at some point, you have to realize this is not who I am.
Right.
You know,
Right.
no, I like to laugh.
Right.
I like to have a good time.
Yeah.
And you telling me what?
Right.
One of the
Right.
ladies,
That's
you know,
True.
one of the ladies who is on my mailing list, and I send a lot of correspondence into the prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she is there. She has a 50-year sentence for killing her husband.
Wow.
And, you know, some of the letters that she wrote me just really touched me in my core because she's a psalmist and they were in church. She's a psalmist, but he wouldn't let her sing,
My God.
right? Whenever she would sing around the house, he would beat her. And it got to the place, it was so bad that he beat her and then he started beating the children. And at that point, that's when she said,
Enough is
no,
enough."
we're not going to do this.
Right.
And one particular night, he decided that he was going to beat her, and she killed him, right? And so her case is on appeal because, you know, her lawyers are trying to use the battered women syndrome, right? But I share that in response to, you know, when you said, well, people that knew me know that, you know, I'm not really quiet,
Right.
you know, but living a life to kind of get along.
To cope.
Right, to cope,
Right.
to not be beaten, to
Right.
not have somebody's, you know, venom come out on you.
Right.
And this is why we have this platform.
Yeah.
This platform is to share with women, to share with the women that you have somebody that you can talk to. Here is a sister who's already done it, who's already made the transition. And so I bring these women so that you'll know that you're not alone, right? You're not alone. You can do it.
Yes.
In this book, she has resources that you can utilize to help you in your transition. Her wonderful organization, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But just coming to the place where you're like, I want to be who I am.
Absolutely.
I want to be free from all of this man-made stuff, all of this. And guess what? Let me tell you, ladies, the people that you are engaged with who are abusers, they are so happy to be your abuser.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what do I mean by that? Because it's a spirit, it's an energy, it's a pathology, right? And so what happens is all of those things need an outlet. All of those things need somebody that it's directed to. And so when you start really getting deep with it, you understand that no, it's not about you. It is about the enemies that were kicked out of heaven. Okay, let's go there. And they harbor people.
My God.
Okay, spirits cannot just live, just here. They have to harbor something in order to move, in order to operate.
Right.
And the best depiction I saw of that was the movie Angel, some time ago. And in this movie, Denzel Washington was in it. And I want you all to get this movie, Fallen Angel. And in the movie, it showed that how demons transfer. They just touch you.
Okay.
You got to watch this. Okay. And it's so deep because they need a body to harbor, right? I don't think the people are bad.
Right.
What they do is bad.
Right.
So
Right.
let me be
Right.
clear on that
Right.
too, right?
Right.
And so you have to know that there needs some deliverance has to take place, but people need to know they need to be delivered.
Right.
Okay?
And want to be.
And want to be, yes. But let's just start with the first
Right,
part.
right.
You just
I
need
mean-
you need to know that you need some deliverance, right?
That's true.
And so it takes two people for the abuse to come to fruition.
You're right.
You know, you
Absolutely.
can't abuse
You're
yourself.
right.
I guess you could. But in this sense, we're talking about domestic abuse. You need an abuser and an abusee, if you
Right.
will.
That's true.
And so I'm saying today, ladies, we are saying today, you no longer have to be the abusee. You can make a decision to walk away. You can make a decision to no more. And I want you to be wise and strategic about how you make this move. And this
Yes.
is why we have
Yes.
Sister Amina. Now, we have to talk about her awesome nonprofit organization. She's not just talking the talk, she's walking the walk. Love by the Handles organization. I love it. We're going to be partnering
Yes,
this
we are.
October
So excited.
for Domestic Violence Awareness
Yes.
Month. But talk about the organization and what you all do.
You know, it's a combination of really the book as well as the foundation. The foundation started first in 2012, and it really started for homeless, for homeless individuals that a lot of times, of course, we see many on the street, but there's so many homeless people, unbeknownst to many of you all, that work right beside you.
Absolutely.
That go home to a shelter. And it really started there. From that, and going through different things that I experienced, then I said, I want to deal with domestic violence as well. And because I was young and going through things and born and raised in D.C., I know of so many youth that have experienced so many things, even in dealing with homelessness and abuse, which causes them to be troubled youth. So I wanted to tap into those three things. But as God saw fit, the domestic violence piece really was the one that took off, because homeless and the youth all kind of was around domestic violence. And I said, God, you are amazing, because I didn't even realize of how it connected. And also, even when I was starting to just deal with the mission and different things, and then 2 years later, I wrote the book, it's like, man, this is what this was about, and it's just amazing of how it happened. And that's what we really focus on. I love handbags. Women, especially women, have different fetishes. My feet hurt too bad, so I can't do high heels all the time.
That's funny.
But I love handbags. And so from that, the name Love by the Handles, because, kind of like with my love of handbags, but more importantly, when people give to shelters, a lot of times if we keep it 100, we give in trash bags. And I didn't want any of my recipients to feel everything about my foundation is purpose driven. And I didn't want anybody from a recipient of my foundation to think that that's what they are.
Wow.
So that's why anything with a handle, it could be a book bag, it could be a purse, we put things in it for survivors.
Girl, that's powerful. And Amina was recently showcased on Fox 5. Lord and Taylor was
channel
Channel
9.
Channel 9. Okay, sorry.
But I can do Fox 5.
Right, we can do Fox 5.
Okay, just
I love
speak
that.
those things into existence.
Right. And she was partnering with Lord and Taylor shopping store. And I love that. Just the whole concept about what you're doing. And so we're going to come together this October, and we're going to be doing this program with her, collecting handbags so that we can help women who are transitioning, so they can transition with some dignity. They can transition with their respect, their esteem, and do it in such a way that they'll get out safely, because that's the point.
And to that point is another reason too that I do the handbags, especially. Now, I do want to make sure that everyone hears me loud and clear. I understand and I know, and I have also dealt with some men that are victims of domestic violence. But we deal so many times with women because men and maybe pride, ego, whatever, they don't want to talk about it. But we know that this is an issue across the board.
Oh, yes.
But
because spirits, now let's go here. Spirits don't discriminate.
No, they don't.
They equal opportunity.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yes, let's be clear.
Absolutely.
So whenever you see one on one side, you see it on the other side. So that is true. So I'm glad you made that point.
And to Elder Nicole's point about the transition and making it easy and safe, that's another thing as time went on in the foundation that I didn't even realize, but yet again, God knew that the handbags is also a good camouflage. When the woman or man, but more so the handbags pertaining, because I do have messenger bags and stuff like that, but when the woman is going back into the house and she's not able to have that smooth transition as of yet, but she's made a decision that I will shush no more, and I'm going to so she can come back in the house with the handbag, but inside the handbag may be some resources to be able to help her journey, and the abuser has no idea. So I have to be very sensitive, and I take what I do very seriously, because the reality of the matter is, if you all are here in the DMV area in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, Prince George's County is one of the counties, DC and Virginia as well, but Prince George's County has the highest percentage of homicides from domestic violence, to the point where they had to have a separate police unit, domestic violence unit. And DC too. DC has way more transition and women's shelters than Prince George's County. Prince George's County has one.
Yeah.
But the reality of the matter is, this is a very serious issue, and there are many women and men, but more women, who have lost their life because people have not taken the abuse seriously. And I really encourage people, and I love this platform that we're on, because the other thing that I want to do is make sure that when we're praying, that we're praying for the domestic violence survivors, the domestic violence victims that have not become survivors yet. Because when they're home, or they're in their situation, and they even have kids, or they're in the shelter, some of these abusers find them in the shelter, and then the shelter has to move them. So my passion and my heart and things that I do, and I can't wait until the day that God released me that I can do this full time, is this is a serious issue, and it needs to be taken seriously, not just from actions, not just from platforms, but more importantly from prayer, because that's the only thing that's going to make a difference ultimately in people's lives and set them free and have the courage to be able to leave a very bad situation.
Well, Reverend Dr. Amina has spoken a word. Okay, yes. And this is what I love, your passion about what you do. Because really, you can't encourage somebody else to make the transition if you're not passionate about helping them, if you're not passionate about how serious this matter is. And this is why I love you. This is why I invited you to this platform, so that we can have this conversation. But one of the things too that we really, really need to focus on, I had someone just last week reached out to me for prayer because a family member had been shot in the face by her husband.
My God.
With a shotgun. Okay? And so, my thought was, wow, come on. We've got to do something more. And this is why this organization and the work that you do is so important. And we won't stop until all of this is eradicated.
Right.
We will continue to talk about it. We won't be quiet.
No.
We will talk about it. We will give you the resources. And so tell them how they can connect with you.
Well, you can connect with me through the website, lovebythehandles.com. And it's not love handles. So lovebythehandles.com. And at my number, 202-656-1356. And from there, I want to talk and find out the different things, because even when you can also contact the domestic violence hotline, and really that's it, domesticviolence.com. But the reality of the matter is, there's so many people that don't even like to go to that broadness, I guess, of information, because they still may be trying to figure out, well, am I really?
Yes.
Is it that serious? Maybe it's just me. And so just connecting with me, lovebythehandles.com, and calling me 202-656-1356. And if I could just interject one thing to just bring this really home, and it really was something that hit me just a couple of weeks ago. I was at a prayer breakfast, and at the prayer breakfast, they asked me to come up and talk about the foundation and this topic. And then from there, we were going to pray for domestic violence victims. So as I'm talking, and then from there, I'm sharing my story very briefly. I had like 5 minutes. And then one of the ministers came up, and she started to pray. Now, as I'm talking, I see this lady who starting to cry. So I clearly know that it's some things that I'm saying she's identifying with. And I started with the sexual abuse. And I talked a lot because I wanted to deal with the spiritual abuse as well. And I talked about how it can paralyze you.
Yes.
The minister started to pray. And in that, God spoke to her and said, it's a woman in here that was sexually abused. And today, you are going to be free. This woman screams out. And that was the same one, ironically, that was crying.
Yes.
I started to talk to her afterwards, just me and her, and found out that she was sexually abused at the age of 10 years old from her aunt, who caused her to actually have sexual acts with other family members.
Wow.
And she told me that was the first time. She was 34 years old. That was the first time that she ever told anybody.
Yes.
She said it was like something came over her when I was talking, because it's like, oh, she understands.
Yes.
And then the lady prayed, because like I said, I know that it may be some people I can't get to, because some people, even if I talk to them, they may not be honest right then. I wasn't. I told y'all I was in my 30s. But prayer and just still reaching out sometimes will bring them forth, you know? And so we're talking, and the crazy part about it is she was visiting this area with a friend.
Wow.
She's from Minnesota, getting on a plane to go back, and both of us she wasn't even coming to the event. She wasn't coming to it, but so both of us are looking at each other like, is this why I was here?
Yes.
For her.
Yes.
So sometimes we have to understand that what we're going through, even if it's for one person, that one person that you're meant to talk to, make a difference in somebody's life, can save a life.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why, you know, I do what I do, and I can tell you that just 2 weeks ago, even when sometimes I get weary and well doing, that alone right there told me, this is why you were called to such a time and platform and ministry as this.
Yes.
So the last thing is, even I realized that all proceeds from my book go straight back to my foundation.
Yes.
So that's what this is about, the work that I know I'm supposed to do.
Girl, that's awesome. I mean, you know, this is why I love God. This is why I serve him. This is why I am sold out for him. I speak well of him. I make his name great. Hallelujah. I could go right there, right? Because only God can orchestrate such events like that, where somebody who is saying in their soul, whether they're saying it out of their mouths or not, that I need to be free.
Right.
And this is why I love the word of God. I love that. I love the story of Rahab. You know, Rahab, she decided that she was tired of being sick and tired of being a prostitute. And I believe that it was her energy, it was her spirit, it was her soul that cried out, and the two spies showed up at her house, okay, in Jericho. They could have just gone anywhere, but they showed up at her house, right?
Right.
This is how God comes after us.
Yes.
He comes after us.
Intentionally.
He seeks after us. Intentionally. Absolutely.
Yes.
You know that's my word.
Yeah, that's
okay?
right.
Be intentional, right? Listen, I want you to know that God is coming after you today.
Yes.
God wants to free you of that burden, to free you of that thing that has held you hostage, because you too, just like Amina, has something great to do. You have something great inside of you. So I want you to connect with her. lovebythehandles.com. And when we put the video up, we'll put that information there. We'll also put her number there. But I want you to connect with her. She's also on social media.
Yes. Amina McWhirter.
Just as the name is spelled, right? You like me. Just Nicole Mason.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And that's Instagram and Facebook, because I'm all of that. You will find everything about me just under my name. And for Twitter, it is LoveBTH. Love BTH for Love by the Handles.
Yes. This is awesome. And, you know, one of the things I want to say, every time I'm having a great conversation, the time just seems like it's just winding up, okay? One of the things that the Lord did just speak to me while you were talking, just so that we're clear, talk about some of the characteristics of domestic violence.
Okay.
Because you made a good point, because some people are saying, well, am I in a domestic violent relationship? So talk about some of the characteristics, particularly some of those that may not be as noticeable as others.
Okay. So the biggest thing is belittling. We talk about control, but a lot of times I don't think that people really get the part of control. Control can also be not so much of you can't talk to this person, because that's obvious.
Right.
You know, you can't go here. It's the control of when you're even trying to do your purpose and your destiny, or start a business, or, you know, want to have, we've even talked about this, want to have good sisterhood, good friendships. And before you know it, the manipulative attitude and the control of, no, well, I don't think, you know, let's go out tonight. Now, you were supposed to go out. I was supposed to go out with Elder Nicole. But if a person or is having an abuser is controlling or manipulative, somehow or another he's going to try to come in and divide that relationship because they don't want you to be around someone strong. They don't want you to be around someone that can maybe point out some things of the unhealthiness that you're in or the toxic relationship. So the control can be very different from what we think or know from that. The other thing is really having the and I go back to being manipulative because that's something that's really subtle. Right. You don't realize that it is some manipulative things that's going on because that's a part of that mental abuse. And see, people don't talk about the mental, the verbal. And when you find, and I talk about belittling, but when you find people that say, in my case, in the past, it was, you only understand if I yell at you. Oh, wow. You only understand something if I, have to talk to you a certain way. That is a sign of something that's unhealthy. Yeah. You know what I mean? When it comes to your finances, another thing that transpired is I worked a full-time job, but didn't even know my worth and didn't know how much I was making because that was even controlled as well. So when you're looking at different things that happen that you don't really get, that's a part of, it's one thing to have the joint account. I get it. Yeah. But when that is being like, you can use freely, but I can't. Yeah. These are things that when that saying used to say things that make you say, like it's true. Like, is that really adding? Yeah. Does that add up? The other thing too is I really want to stress this because I think people take it very lightly when it comes to verbal abuse. That saying, bricks and stones, sticks and stones, my bone, but words will never hurt. That's a lie. That's a lie. Right. And that really is a part of like the verbal because what happens is we know the scripture that talks about we speak life or death to our situation. If somebody is speaking death and not positive, not encouraging words, always putting you down, you this, you that, you never will be, and that's somebody that you are close with, that's someone you're in a relationship with, that's your mom, that's your dad, something that right there will break you. Yes. Will cause you not to live a fulfilled life. So these are things, and the whole aspect of even the spiritual piece is something that we don't talk about or don't realize. If you're in a ministry, but the ministry is being you're being talked to or things are happening where it is that manipulative and control, that's other signs. It's like, wait a minute, they're switching the word of God to benefit them and to make me feel less than or condemn my spirit. That's unhealthy. That's not a good ministry. Find another one. You know what I mean? So these are things that I really try to touch on, especially when it comes to finances, when it comes to how you're being talked to, when it comes to how you're being dealt with, and ultimately, before you know it, you're not living a fulfilled life.
Yeah, and the other thing that occurs to me, it's a build-up. Absolutely. It's a build-up. So it may start out one way, and then all of a sudden there's a switch of some sort.
To your point, when I go into domestic violence shelters, one in particularly, twice a month. And as I want to say this last statement to just make sure, to her point, that people understand. When I go and I talk to many of these ladies and I empower them and I encourage them, that is what they say happened. Before it even got physical, the emotional, the mental, and the verbal abuse occurred. And because they didn't think that was just as serious as them getting physically abused, the abuser also built up because I was able to get away with that. Okay, I can get away with this. Okay, and so that is where, and with that, the verbal altercation, the verbal words, I think you had even used something before, it's like poison. From that, it starts to escalate, and now the physical. Yes. So, and I do want to say this really quickly, and this is the last thing I want to say is, I really want to encourage women, especially out here, who don't understand this situation. Be mindful to not put your mouth negatively on a sister that is going through, and you say, I don't understand that. That wouldn't have happened to me. Because you never know. Absolutely. And be sensitive to our sisters that are going through things.
Woo. Well, you know how I feel about that. Okay. you can only really be a real sister when you really love your own self. And so for those women who are not sensitive and are not compassionate, my thought would be, what about you? What does that say about you? Because we all understand that we all have our crosses to bear. Maybe somebody theirs may have been abused, somebody else is something else. But when we understand that we are our sister, I'm not your keeper. I am you. You are me. I am you. When one of us is going through, we're all going through. And so it is incumbent upon us to know that we are to extend ourselves. We are to extend love. We are to extend whatever it is that we have so that the next woman can become all that God has created her to be. We have an obligation to do that. So, girl, I'm telling you, I love this work that you're doing.
And I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
So support Amina, her book, Shh, No More. Be free and live life. Listen, you want to be free. Her organization, Love by the Handles. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking more about our collaboration that we're going to be doing in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, because this is the reason that we're here today, so that we can let you know that you are not alone, that you have somebody that you can connect with who's already made the transition. And you can too. All right? So we love you.
Love you.
And we know that God has a plan for you. And it's not to be abused. It's to be free and to live life. So I want you to get Sister Amina's book. Reach out to her organization and check in with Amina so that you can get some help, whatever that is. All right? So we love you.
We love you. Thank
God bless you.
Bless you.
This is not the time to get distracted, and this is not the time to go off course. This is not the time to lose your focus. Got a work to do for the Lord, and you cannot afford to lose your way. You come too far from where you started, so please don't let the time you've sown be wasted on things that you'll later regret, wishing you never had. Once you realize it wasn't worth it, your destiny is too important to give up for anything. This is not a time to get distracted. No, no, no. This is not a time to go off course. This is not a time to Waiting on the other side of this test is everything you've ever dreamed, everything you prayed for, everything he promised you that you'd get. Waiting on the other side of temptation, waiting on the other side of this test is everything you've ever dreamed, everything you prayed for, everything he promised you that you'd get. So hold on and don't let go. Hold on, you just stack close. Hold on and never give up. Hold on, say hold on and don't let go. Hold on, 'cause you just stack close. Hold on and never give up. Hold on, say hold on, say it's only a matter of time, 'cause I can see the finish line. My victory is days away, so I'ma get ready. It's been a long time coming, but I know it's coming for sure. I got a promise from the Lord, yeah. Waiting on the other side of temptation, waiting on the other side of this test is everything you've ever dreamed, everything you prayed for, everything he promised you.